Hi, everybody. Welcome to By Way of Illustration. We'll be chatting today about the art of storytelling and the importance of creativity. But I suppose before we get started, we should head over to Shapley. He'll be telling us more about his project, the book, and yeah, I guess what we have in store for today.
Sure. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming through. Today, we are here to have a conversation on, by way of illustration, the value of storytelling. Before we go into that, I would like to play a quick video.
Went back and tried to remember what are those things that fueled me, what are those things that I loved doing, and it all came back to the arts. And yeah, that's when I made the decision that, you know what, I only have one life. Like, I'm done living it according to standards of people who also don't know what they're doing with their lives. So,
because they still have that typical, I would say, perception that artists are, they not ordered, they just go willy-nilly and everything. Something that you make is an art, and I think I just decided to explore mine.
There's a beauty of art, that it's about your life, it's about your journey.
Cartoons all the time. But up until that point, I never thought it was possible for me to do this thing, you know.
So when I started, I was like, yeah, one day I want my work to be in a museum. One day I want my work to be in a magazine. And then once your work is in a publication, I mean, you can't stop, because it's like, oh, okay, now I want it to be in this publication, or I want it to be in a certain studio, I want to own a studio, I want to work from a studio. I'm so behind, we're like, what, 20 or 30 years behind? So if we can make the young ones also catch up, and I don't know why we're catching up, but we have to catch up.
How do you make the young child respect those little doodles that they make?
How do we balance out the visual landscape, you know, the content landscape?
That's about where you come from, because I feel like everyone has their own opinion on art. Everyone sees art differently. So you just basically expressing yourself as a creative, as an artist, that's whatever it is. It's you allowing people to just be themselves.
Something that I think the art world needs, and it's an inspiration that allows us as African artists also to embrace who we are as African artists, and to embrace what we see around us and put that in our art, and not have to do art that conforms.
You can come up with fantasy work even if from the hood. You don't have to come up with struggle identity concepts because you're from the hood. Yeah, just do whatever the fuck you want.
I think this generation of artists, like, I feel like that's gonna leave a legacy, you know? I feel like there's never been, in South Africa, from my point of view, like a generation of like so many artists, like talented artists, you know?
I would just love to see more illustrators and animators getting into the field and doing well and living off of their art.
We need to be seen more. It's basically just really important for everyone to be able to have a place of reference, a catalog that shows that we existed.
Like, you can't control how people see you, but you can control what you do. So if you live a life that, you know, I'm living 100% with everything that I'm doing, eventually it should resonate to being a life of legacy.
Sure. So that was a trailer snippet from a docu-series that we put together after we dropped our first book. We're gonna go into a presentation slideshow just to explain what the project is about and how we got started. Just a few seconds. So tonight, on the panel, while we wait for that to come up, we've got the beautiful Visa hosting us, making sure everything runs in order. And then we've also got Tapelo, who was one of the featured illustrators in our first book. And then joining us online, we've got Litabo and Q Doodles. Hi, guys.
Hi.
So.
No. Okay, cool. So unfortunately, it seems the presentation isn't working out. But yeah, so how the event, this by way of illustration started was out of the desire of learning and understanding the craft better, you know. So I decided to put together a talk series where I invited different illustrators from different work fields, career paths, and we all came together and had a conversation about how we can grow together and what we're all doing in our own parts and how we can all make money together. We then felt that the talk series didn't live long enough, so we decided to package it into a book where we featured all the featured guests. And yeah, we've got a book series that dropped last year, and now we are currently working on our second book volume, which features about 18, 19 different illustrators, all very dope, all from different backgrounds and have different skill sets. Yeah. So that's basically the background of the project.
I think we know about you, but I think maybe we should also start the conversation by having people introduce themselves. So maybe we should start with the guys on the Zoom, and then we'll come back to Thapelo here. So just a brief intro of who you are and what it is really that you do. So I think, yeah.
Okay, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Letabo, and I'm a digital artist from Pretoria, South Africa. That's where I'm currently based. And I've been an artist for 5 years. The first years of my career, I was a traditional artist. I focused more on the traditional art space. And then the last 3 years until now, I've just solely been doing, in the digital art space. And my work is really just about, I treat my work as a visual diary of just the human experience, through the eyes of a young African woman. Thanks.
Should I go next? Okay, cool. Hey, everybody. My name is Gondile Dlamini, but everybody calls me Q or Q Doodles or Doodles, whatever you like. I am a graphic designer and an illustrator. I've been working since 2014, so it's about 8 years in the game. And I started my career in advertising. I still do work in advertising from time to time when I need some money on the side. But illustration is something I've always done. I've always drawn. Even in high school, that was what I was good at in high school. I wasn't good at much else, but I was really good at art. I've been doing illustration as a side thing, and then the advertising thing as a full-time gig, and then freelancing here and there. So, yes, me.
Dope. Thapelo?
Hello, everyone. My name is Thapelo Kietile. So I've also built a name called Grims in these streets. So to put everything together, I'm a visual artist because I put my hands almost everywhere. So it could be animation, illustration, delving into painting and motion graphics. So I try to delve everywhere just to build my skills. So I'm an artist based in Johannesburg, but originally I'm from the Northwest in Freiburg. So my work mostly is not really mostly based on the lived experience of the everyday life, but I base my work as a platform to open a space to explore the highest level of the imagination, especially just based on either philosophies or stories of the African continent.
Okay. I think we should start maybe with you, Sharp, as we go into this conversation. And I think a good place to start is, why did you think it was so important to have the talks and then ultimately to have this book?
I'd say the journey started back in varsity when we had to write our research papers and academic papers. And you'd go and try find references on African artists. and you'd find minimum things online, and that was back in 2010. And I felt that over the last few years we've had a lot, like a renaissance of African creatives. We've got, I think, a lot of guys that are kind of putting out work, doing great work, working with big brands, you know. I just felt that there wasn't enough documentation happening for us to really, look back on these people and see what they're doing, because we always try and document people once they've passed on. And instead of that, we need to kind of start documenting ourselves, doing what we're doing, you know. And then on the other side of it, you know, when I had to pick my subjects in high school, I had a big fight with my dad, where I had to convince him and bring him to the school guidance counselor and be like, yo, dude, this is a business. I mean, there's money in doing arts and doing computer graphics and stuff, you know. I would like to make that journey easier for the next generation of artists to come, you know. So packaging this into a book, and hopefully one day it can be a source of reference for students out there.
And then I suppose to the artists, and we'll start with you, Thapelo, why was it important to get involved in the project and to be a part of something like this?
His project, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, we knew each other from university. So he kind of knew what I do. So he approached me to come and do it. So for me, it was important because I understood immediately that, you know, he's bringing people together, also building a database, and also importantly a community. So being part of that community was also important to me, and also having just a platform just to show my work and getting it involved in different spaces, and more closely also to sort of like continue doing this thing with him, because apart from the book, we've been involved in other projects that we've done together that he's brought me in. Also the discussions that we had on how we can, like how we see the art space or how we see it evolving. So it was just important also, just the connection, you know, being part of a community, which was important for me.
And I don't know if maybe Q can answer that from the ladies who are on Zoom. Why was it important to be a part of this project?
Q, please unmute. Q, I think you muted. No?
We can't hear you.
I'm talking to myself the whole time and you guys are not telling me. But I'm unmuted now. I'm here. So basically why I wanted to get involved in the project was because I've been working in the creative space for a very long time, and since back in 2014 I started illustrating and then kind of gave up on it because I didn't see where it was going. And then like 2 years ago, I decided that I want to leave advertising completely, slowly, and like pursue illustration. So I think that being part of, you called it the Renaissance, but being part of being seen as a group of illustrators for me is important, as opposed to being seen as one person, because it's very difficult to get your name out there. So I'm hoping that in the future, everybody associates me with this bunch of illustrators that I'm in this book with going forward. So I think it's an honor actually to be part of this book and to be asked to be part of this project. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
Okay. Sharp, you speak or touched or spoke to your dad having like a resistance to you joining, and I think that's the story for a lot of young, but I think particularly young Black people who have an interest or are trying to pursue a career in creativity. It's often, I guess, the reputation now in our communities is that it's not sustainable, right? So a big part of, I suppose, what this work is about is to show that there is opportunity to make a career and to make a living. Can we speak about like what that journey has been for you? And then I'd like to hear from everybody else, just like what those opportunities actually look like. Because someone who doesn't know, who doesn't understand, thinks you guys just doodle and draw for a living, right? Mm-hmm. But what does that look like, and what is the place of that work in our community? And yeah, let me leave it there.
Sure. So I would start with saying illustrating is kind of storytelling. It is storytelling, taking ideas and depicting them into images, you know, something that has feeling, you know. So I would say, sorry, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I would say the journey for me in trying to find myself in this industry, yeah, I mean, it has been interesting. I used to work in advertising as well, and then freelanced, and then from freelancing, I started my own company. And I think that journey, it was cool, because yeah, I mean, I learned what I needed to learn from the industry, and then I freelanced to find my own way, and then formalized, yeah, by starting a company. There's a lot of opportunities in the industry. Yeah, I mean, creative industry brings in billions for the GDP. So yeah, from designing to animation to architecture to motion graphics, all these industries make lots of money, you know. And I feel with illustration as a tool, you can conquer different fields. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of opportunities.
On my side, yeah, on my side it's like up and down, especially on my side, my family, there was a lot of resistance, really, right? And the difficulty was just them understanding what is the bigger picture in this industry and for them to understand. So my family mostly are based on, I mean, what they did for a living was in the, what do you call, policing and traffic industry. So the jobs they know are what they did or what our family members did. So when I started this career path, I was sort of like the first to like go into it. So I had to do a lot of educating to them, keeping them in process of what I'm doing, what they're talking about, all the news in the media about it. I had to do that. But then also my struggles as well, or what I went through in this industry, from either my understanding, my lack of knowledge, or from missed opportunities, has also taught me what I needed to progress in this industry. So what I learned mostly to convince myself on what I need and to convince them to understand what this is about was for me to also firstly be amongst people and share ideas and be in the community and sort of like each other, feeding each other, giving each other understanding. Where mostly my experience has been, I've went like head deep in it and done the craft and sort of like focused too much on the story, but people will see it, but they don't know me character-wise. So my journey has been mostly sort of like the people around me that don't understand what I'm doing. I had to constantly educate them or constantly remind them, no, this is the path that I'm going there, and showing them, constantly showing them it's going to take me there, and me going there, showing them that there's an opportunity, many opportunities into this, but not also just not one path, but many paths. But I had to take the actions for that. Yeah.
I mean, you speak about community, and so did, I think it was Q earlier on, and so to Letabo. I want to speak about the state of the illustrator community and your experience participating in it. We know a lot about a lot of other cultures, a lot of other art forms. What is the state and what is the community looking like in terms of illustrators?
Right now, I feel like there's a lot of eyes like within the art space, like within the like illustrator community, where a lot of people are starting to value art, especially like digital art. Like for example, when I got into digital art like years ago, I kind of didn't feel like I fit anywhere. I felt like I wasn't really understood or valued, or I felt like my work wasn't really valued. And I feel like now we're seeing a very interesting change where I think also the pandemic has also just contributed to this, because a lot of people are just connected like virtually, like right now. So I just feel like there's definitely a lot more attention, a lot more value that's being placed within the illustrator community, especially digital illustrations.
Leading me to my next point, which is around, we're living in this globalized community now, right? And digital media is something else that's also like influenced and infiltrated every other industry. Can we talk about the effect of that on illustrating and also just, your experiences as people who are practicing in this really globalized world, right? Because you can reach people from anywhere?
Sure. Maybe Letao should answer that. She's the NFT star.
Oh, hilarious. But wow. I'm an NFT artist, meaning that so like I sell my work as NFTs, and an NFT is just like a certificate that proves ownership of a digital item, right? And that just kind of like changed the art game for digital artists, because now we're at a point where digital art can be authenticated, meaning that our value as digital artists, the value in digital art is almost placed at the same level as the value of like traditional art, because like the one thing that we struggled with was authentication, right? And I think now that we're in a very virtual space, the world is so much more receptive to just so many ways of like creating, especially like in the virtual space. Like there's so many ways that we can create now, like so many new ways that we can create. Like there's like you can create like using virtual reality tools, Photoshop, so many different ways that we can create. And I just I'm happy to be alive during this time. And yeah.
Okay. So we're talking about the value of storytelling, right? And what I want to know, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get an answer from everybody, is what is the story that you're trying to tell?
Good question. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think that sure enough we come from Africa, but we are adequate. We can do this craft. We've been putting in the time to kind of develop and acquire the skill, you know? So yeah, I think that's the first thing that we're saying. Over and above that, I think, yeah, that we're here, you know? We're here to make our mark and yeah, make it long lasting.
Okay.
On my side, okay, when I started out, my mission was not purely for storytelling, but it was mostly to focus on building craft and sort of like trying to get that together. But the older I got, the more I realized how important it is also in order for me to connect with what I'm doing, to say something. So that is also not my strong point as well. So what I've decided to do is that I'm taking the space where I'm from, the influences. So for example, most of the drawings that I do have characters that wear clothing that symbolize how we how we used to wear clothes before. And I've also conceptually made that the hair that I have my characters symbolize the theft or the roofing of a hut. So I'm trying to take symbolisms or like images from what we are used to in our continent. It might be a bit basic, but evolving from there. So my mission is, or something that I'm trying to develop, is that storytelling that picks from our experiences mainly. Doesn't have to be current, but mainly historical, or that's why I also mentioned our philosophy. So stories that are driven by that. Also, if it's driven by that we are also developed enough to also portray it and visualize it and put it out there and know how to also tell it sequentially. Yeah, and for everybody to understand, including kids, elders, whoever is looking at it can also relate somehow, as much as it's imaginative or non-imaginative. Yeah.
Thank you.
She's coming.
I'll stay.
Q.
Wait, who's talking? Me or Letao? Oh, okay, cool. For me, when I started drawing, like I said, I started drawing at a very young age. I just enjoy drawing. It's the one thing that I do to make my mind wander off. So I think after I finished advertising school, and I learned about storytelling in advertising school and the value of it, like to brands and stuff like that. I didn't understand it very well at the time, and I just kept on drawing, and just like Tapelo said, more concentrated on learning the skill and the craft. And then I think as I got older, I wanted to draw people that look like me. Like I wanted to draw people that felt like me, people that, and not because a lot of the time, whenever I saw art when I was growing up and it had Black women in it, there was like some strife, there was some struggle, there was some, it wasn't like a happy space. So for me, that's kind of what the story that I'm trying to tell. I'm trying to tell the story of Black women being beautiful and great and not struggling. Like that's because that's my personality. I'm a very like happy person. I'm a very bubbly person. I'm loud. So I think for me, I think that there's a space for me to represent that with my art. And initially I hadn't gotten to this, but a lot of the time people come and tell me how my work has made them feel or how it's made them feel seen. And so for me, I think that's the story that I'm trying to tell for now. But I'm hoping that as I get older, I'll maybe get deeper with it. But for now, I'm just trying to be cute with it. That's it.
Letabo.
My story is very similar to Q's story, similar experiences. When I started off, I just really focused on just the skill and like mastering the skill and like just the aesthetics of how it looked. I think also it stemmed from a place of like, I'm not a very articulate person. I struggle with like really expressing myself verbally. So I used art as a way to like communicate with the world, right? So for me, storytelling was not my strong point because I just wanted to draw and I just felt like it was the best way for me to speak to the world or to speak to anyone who was listening. And later on, I realized that it's so important for people to really like, you need to sort of like try to still communicate or use words to explain the visual part of what you're trying to say. And I'm still learning and growing and just trying to figure out how to do that. But same with me, like right now I'm just focused on like expressing myself and like using my work like as a visual diary to just my own life experiences, how I feel about the world, how I see the world, what I think about different things in the world.
Okay. So I want to talk about, for those of us who didn't go to advertising school or formally, educated, I think many of us take for granted the role that illustration and visual arts has to play in our community, right? So as you're all talking and you're talking about communication and you're talking about making all sorts of kinds of people, from young people to old people, understand, then I think about visual literacy, right? And how this craft and the skill is important for that. So I think maybe you can start us off, and then I don't know, anybody else who wants to contribute to just the value of the skill. I think we take it for granted. We think that it's just in, galleries and museums, but it's part of our everyday life. The way that we consume information and the way that we see the world is informed by the skill, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we are directed by visuals day in, day out. We see visuals online, on TV, they're everywhere. So we cannot ignore them and say they're irrelevant. I mean, I think, yeah, it's very important to teach a child that the doodles aren't just doodles. The doodles are a pathway to a career, to doing what you want to do, Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yes, I don't know if anybody else wants to answer that one.
Okay. I didn't mention I'm also from the advertising space. I kind of still. Huh?
It's where we start out.
I've realized being in that space has sort of also made me sensitive on how I look at images and consume it as well. And to a point where sometimes I'm triggered or maybe it's because I've developed and I can see probably the cheesiness sometimes and how sometimes it's a bit like it can make you lose direction or gain some direction. So the sensitivity there has become important in my life. So how I've adapted to that, and you're right, like I've realized that it is in everyday life, but then it's kind of harder to also tell people that this can influence you daily. Just as you wake up, what you watched last night can influence you immediately in the morning as you wake up. So what I do after learning that in advertising is that I'm trying to also connect it to myself as well, what I'm interested in. For example, I used to be interested in concepts of love, and every image that I did was to try and communicate that visual language, how I could tell it from my center and then put it out. Recently, I've been very interested in portraying power, but that's very difficult, and also difficult because I'm trying to also not make it too violent. So being very considerate on what you do and how you put it together is very important, but also thinking about how people receive it plays a big role, because what you put in, like that intention that you want to put out, either you intended or it could be a mistake, both will reach them. So it's very important that we tell people that this is part of what influences you every day. To be aware of that will help everyone, I think.
Okay, and then I think I just want to bring it back to you, Sharp, right? In terms of the book, what that process has been like for you, in terms of the creative process, and how you decided who to include, and what the selection maybe was based on, or how you ended up with the people that are in the book.
Sure.
Yeah.
Initially, as I said, it was an event series that we had hosted, and then after I think season 1 of the event series, we took everybody that was invited and put them in the book, and then COVID hit. So then, that whole plan or workflow just went out the window. So for the second volume of the book, it was more of interacting online, sending them questions. They filled them in, and then they sent them back. And then, I think it sucked because the first process was better. We went to everybody's studio, see where they worked, got to, see them in their natural spaces. So it has sucked in that way, but I think the content is still the same. The value that is added via what everybody's saying, what everybody's sharing. Both the ladies are in the second volume, and their work is phenomenal. So how did we go about finding these people? It's a mixture of people that I know from back in the day. It's people that I went to varsity with, people that I found online. Anybody that was willing to interact. I think for the second book, we sent out about 70 requests, and then only 18 kind of followed through with it, Okay. So, I think it's a give and take thing. Give and take. Because, this book wouldn't be possible without everybody contributing, without everybody, I think, believing in the idea,
Okay, I'm very interested in people, so I want to know more about you guys. And I want to know, what are everybody's inspiration, and what do you all envision for your work? What do you want to see for your work in the future? Maybe let's start with the ladies.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, good. So from me, I think I like beauty. That's my thing. I like beauty. I like making things look beautiful. I like bright colors. And I think once I realized this, my initial thing is I studied architecture, and then because that's what my parents wanted me to study. And then I had always wanted to be an artist. And then I realized what design was, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is cool. This is something that I can use to create beauty. So for me, I think that's kind of what I follow. I just want to make things look good. I don't care whether it's through graphic design, art direction, illustration, video. I don't care what it is. I just want to make things look good. And that's kind of my purpose.
Okay, we don't really have more time, but I wanted to find out from everybody just, what they have to say maybe to the next generation of illustrators, young people that are watching who maybe might be inspired and might be thinking about pursuing this career, and what you have to say and to share with them.
It's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, there's highs and lows, the highs are fun, the lows aren't so fun. But yeah, it's possible. I think there's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of resources, and there's a community here if you really need to somebody to lean on. But yeah, it's possible.
From my side, I think, like you said, it is not easy. I think also what I did is I played it safe too long. So my next step is to take some risks into, I don't know where I might go, but the risk is important, and that'll help you grow. Growing is a very much important thing in this, So I feel like, and it doesn't, maybe I don't feel like I share it with a lot of people, but the more you grow, you're going to feel like the work changes. I don't know if you want to keep doing the same stuff but as long as some depth exists in the work, it doesn't have to be changes in the visual, but people should feel a sense of change, a sense of life in the work as you grow, which is very important on my side. And I think when young people decide to do it, they should try and focus a lot first on if you set your mind into the study. So a lot of influences comes in now. Now the art is growing and the celebrity factor is coming in. Nothing wrong with that. But it's also, there's a lot of strings that can pull you in it, in different directions. So if you know your purpose or who you are, what you want out of your work, even if you want to be a celebrity in it, just stick to that you want the output to be, Or if you're lost in it, so long as you trying to find where you are, what suits you as well,
Okay. And Letabo and Q?
I think I would just say that, be kind and patient to yourself. Don't, be kind and patient to yourself. Never stop creating. What I mean by that is that you don't have to always physically be creating. Create by thinking, create by conceptualizing things in your mind. And I'd also just say that your art is important. Your art is important. As basic as you might think it is so important. And also one last thing would be discipline. What I realized about this space is that you need to be disciplined in your passion. Don't just create whenever you feel like it. There are going to be moments where you just have to create and just kind of treat it as a job. And in those moments, you learn so much more. Thanks.
And then from me, I think that I also just want to go back to what Letabo said in terms of discipline. I think when I was in grade 12, I took it for granted, I was good at art and stuff, but I took it for granted that this is not like being a doctor or being a lawyer where you walk into an office and there's rules and regulations and people are telling you this is how things are done and this is what. A lot of us have spent the past 10 years, 8 years figuring out, okay, cool, what does this mean? What does it and a lot of us have been driven by a passion of wanting to see ourselves become something. Well, that's been it for me. I've always wanted to have my own voice through my own art. And it's not easy. I will let you know it's not easy. It's not easy seeing your friends who you finished college with are now doctors and they're doing crazy things. They're traveling the world and people are still paying you 2,000 Rand for something that's taken you 50 hours to do, So I think believe in yourself, believe in your craft, and concentrate on crafts. That's discipline. That's where the discipline comes from. Concentrate on crafts, Your 10,000 hours are important. You need to put them down. We can see them. And also look at the community. I think that the next generation that's coming up, like Shopley's saying, there's a lot more faces to look at. When we were coming up, there'd be like 2 Black people who do this thing, and they're inaccessible. They live in England or in wherever. Now you can't turn around without finding somebody who's an illustrator, graphic designer, works in the creative field. They don't look like a struggling artist. They look like they are figuring it out. So I think like the next generation is gonna have a good time, and we're here for you. So, shout out.
Thank you. I think that concludes our chat. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Basha Uhuru. Thank you, Conhill. Thank you, Nandos. And thank you for everybody who tuned in. Any words from you, Shop?
No, to bigger, better, and thicker books.
And buy the book, yes.
And yes, buy the books.
Thank you.